Let's talk about a bunch of pitchers up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Wednesday, September 13th. I am Frank Sanfield, joined by Scott White. And let's talk about some waiver wire pitchers. Part 1. We got a ton of names here on the list. And the first 3 are Bryan Woo, who had a great start up against the Angels, 5 2/3 shutout innings with 8 strikeouts and 20 swinging strikes. Cal Quantrill has turned in 3 quality starts in a row since coming back off the IL. And Hyunjin Ryu turned in the first quality start of the season. We got a bunch of matchups here too, Scott. I'll quickly read these off. Bryan Woo is facing the A's, the Rangers. Cal Quantrill, the Royals, the Orioles, and the Tigers. Hyunjin Ryu, the Red Sox, the Rays, and the Rays. How would you rank those 3?
So I think Woo's definitely number 1. The fact he lines up for 2 starts next week, one of them against the Athletics, it's going to make him pretty hard to pass up for that week, unless you just have a loaded pitching staff, of course. Bryan Woo, I feel pretty confident will be among my sleeper pitchers for next week. Hyunjin Ryu would be second, but I don't love the matchups. This was his first quality start since returning. He'd been effective, but just short outings, and he only threw 82 pitches in this one. So I'm not sure he's turned a corner necessarily working deep into games. Cal Quantrill is a distant third. He's always been a bad strikeout pitcher, but during this 3-start quality start streak, it's been especially bad with the strikeouts, and I don't trust him to avoid a blow-up outing, especially in a year where those are so common. Even more than these 3 pitchers, I might prefer Edward Cabrera, even over these 3 pitchers who had kind of a mixed results outing following an opener here on Tuesday. He allowed just 1 hit in his 4 2/3 innings of work, but he walked 6, which, his previous outing against the Dodgers, also following openers, he was much more in control and he struck out 8 in 4 innings. But it's that dichotomy of like crazy good stuff for Edward Cabrera versus control that can be downright awful at times. And so his final 3 turns this year, which may not be true starts, they may be following openers, but they're very favorable for Edward Cabrera. He gets the Mets, he gets the Brewers, he gets the Pirates. And so even if it's not, I want this guy in my lineup, I'd want to pick up Edward Cabrera just because I fear what the upside could be against my team with those matchups.
I hear you on the matchups, but man, those walks, he has walked 6 or more batters 4 different times this year. That is just, it almost seems impossible walking that many batters. So I love the stuff, but man, it is hard hard for me to get involved, I guess, with Edward Cabrera. Waiver wire pitchers part 2. John Means made his season debut, and he's going up. He was up against the Cardinals, 5 innings, 3 runs, 1 strikeout to 0 walks. His last 3 starts at the Astros, at the Guardians, and home against the Red Sox. Zack Littell has gone 7+ innings in back-to-back starts. His last 3 at the Orioles versus the Blue Jays and at the Blue Jays. And then J.P. Sears turned in a quality start at the Astros. He's turned in 3 solid starts in a row now. And he is facing the Mariners, the Tigers, and the Angels. How do you rank this group, Scott? Sears, Littell, and John Means.
I don't think I want anything to do with any of them down the stretch. Means, some good, some bad in his first start back from Tommy John surgery. I like that he got whiffs with the changeup. I like that the average exit velocity against was low. His next matchup is against the Astros in a 2-start week, which is dangerous, especially for a left-hander, especially in Houston. The second one against the Guardians would be great, but I have to see how that matchup goes against the Astros before I could seriously consider starting Means. So probably not going to happen. Littell is my second favorite just in a general sense, but he has a matchups issue down the stretch too. I think the fact he got 8 strikeouts in 7 innings was more a reflection of how strikeout prone the Twins lineup is than anything else. And I think there's too much downside to using Littell. Sears, not enough upside to justify the downside, especially given the supporting cast he has in Oakland.
All right. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Audacy app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.